YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here. Welcome back to Game 3 between the Prussian Prince and Dark Admiral. This is a tournament gameplay. If you didn't see the last episodes, I'll just kind of quickly go over the rules. It's a best of 5. Right now it stands 1-1. If you haven't seen the other episode, go watch that. So this is going to be Game 3. And we've got the overall rules is large funds, large unit size, 1 hero max. Max 4 the same, except for Bretonnia can have 6. Max 3 demigryph knights, max 12 melee infantry for the Greenskins, max 8 flying units. There are a few other rules, but that should pretty well cover it. Like I said, it stands at 1-1. If you have not seen the last battle, I suggest you go watch it to get yourself caught up before watching this one. So, Prussian Prince is going to be representing Chaos, and Bretonnia is going to be represented by Dark Admiral. So, Chaos versus Bretonnia, what do you have going on here? Well, one of them is all elite, overpriced infantry, which would be Chaos, versus almost no options for infantry, which would be Bretonnia. Very heavy on cavalry with Bretonnia, and a decent bowman in the form of peasant bowmen. You have options with mounted yeomen, you have Pegasus Knights, different units that can forward deploy or vanguard deploy. King Leon Kerr is definitely a beast in air-to-air combat, though you probably will not see any air-to-air combat against Chaos. It is possible, but unlikely. But yeah, he regenerates too, which is something to remember about Leon Kerr. And so just keep that in mind. Chaos has access to the lore of metal, lore of fire, and the lore of death, on top of some really interesting melee lords. So who will we see? I will see you in the battle, and we'll check out the armies and see what happens. So welcome to Game 3. You can see the Prussian Prince's Warriors of Chaos and the Bretonnian army over there. Bretonnian army is all mobile, very similar to what Prussian Prince tried last time. The Prussian Prince has several Chaos Trolls, 4 of them, 1 Chaos Spawn, a Lore of Death Wizard. He's got Kholek Sun Eater, and then there's going to be several Forsaken and some Chaos Marauders. We're going to have 3 mounted Yeoman Archers for Bretonnia. There is 1 Poison Warhound here for the Prussian Prince, which is going to immediately be attacked by Pegasus Knights, who would very easily dispatch such a foe, but then Kholek is going to get a hold of these Pegasus Knights. So they will want to stay away from that. So this Bretonnian army is going to be all mobile, attempting to do something similar to what Prussian Prince did to Dark Admiral in the last game. The Warhounds trying to retreat from the Knights of the Realm, very quickly being dealt with. We've already got a Spirit Leech out on King Louis Leon Kerr, and he's going to start taking some damage. I always get his name wrong. But in any case, he's going to take some damage, but he regenerates, so it won't be the end of him. He's going to come down on top of the Death Sorcerer, but he's going to have to flee fairly quickly because there's a lot of Chaos units around, and he doesn't want to get caught on the ground. Immediately, a Knights of the Realm is broken by the combination Forsaken, Kholek Sun Eater. Kholek Sun Eater is actually a bit faster than Knights of the Realm. So this shoot and scoot, hit and run type army that Dark Admiral has set up is going to suffer pretty badly from the fact that Kholek is actually going to be able to catch a lot of the cavalry units that are fleeing from him, especially the Knights of the Realm, which make up the hitting part of this army. And Kholek, you can see, is doing all the hitting here. So already, this game is not boding well for Bretonnia, but we'll see whether or not Dark Admiral can turn it around. The Prussian Prince being very aggressive, and he's getting units where he needs them. Several Knights of the Realm have already been removed from the battlefield or severely damaged, and this Peasant Archer is already routing, being attacked in the back by Poison Chaos Hounds, a very fast-moving unit here, which is going to be very handy. And nicely played, expecting that there could be some fast-moving units here from Bretonnia. A nice spin there by the Prussian Prince. Forsaken here. Actually, not nearly as fast as the Knights of the Realm, but somehow managing to keep up here. This is going to require intensive micro across the map for Dark Admiral, and right now there's just too many situations that are going wrong for him. These Knights of the Realm charging in are just not going to get the damage done that they need to. They have a very nice charge bonus. Very good against infantry, but there's too much monstrous infantry and other units around that are going to disrupt the effectiveness of the Knights of the Realm. Leon Kerr getting hit by another Spirit Leech, though you can see that his health is still in quite good shape. He's a little bit hard to pull down, but the Death Sorcerer does at least give Chaos some extended reach to go after a flying unit. The Pegasus Knights here floating down into the back of this engagement. They will do quite good versus Chaos Marauders, for sure, especially on the charge. They're going to try and get back in the air, though, because there's more Chaos units trying to pin them to the ground. And the Knights of the Realm are going to extricate from that fight as well. So you can see the power bar slightly in favor of the Prussian Prince at the moment. You can hear Kholek grunting and yelling, running around the battlefield here. He gets his little lightning spell off and zaps a decent number of mounted yeoman archers, or at least does some damage to them. That's a nice little spell for him. These Pegasus Knights nearly dead, barely escaping combat there. So at this point, there's not a whole lot left for Bretonnia. If we take inventory what they got, they have a Pegasus Knights and Knights of the Realm. 2 of them there, so some pretty damage. They're going to try and take out this regrouped Forsaken, and they will easily do that. This Knights of the Realm comes back from routing. The King is in pretty rough shape in terms of hit points, but he can regenerate, so it's not a complete loss. These Forsaken, mismicroed by the Prussian Prince, are going to be mopped up. The Chaos Warhounds with poison, paying off handsomely here as they have chased down lots of these units and given grief to an army that otherwise requires a lot of micro. These guys are on skirmish, and here you can see them getting caught at the red line, and they will be punished by the Chaos Warhounds with poison. At least I thought they would. I think the Chaos Warhounds actually broke. They did. That was very fortunate for the archers. It may have been the presence of the flying monster. So the Chaos Warhounds actually defeated there at the red line in a very interesting twist of fate. Here comes Kholek, putting on the extra, let's see, one of those is not speed. I was wondering if it was. Let's see, they're also coming up against the, it's no longer a red line in Warhammer, it's more like a magic line. And people are always saying, it's not like in some battlefield there was actually a red line where the enemy army couldn't go. Well, in Warhammer, there probably wasn't a magic line, but it's probably more feasible than it was in historical titles. Anyway, you can see the Chaos units chasing out the mounted yeoman archers. They rout and are immediately forced off the battlefield since they were near the red line. The lightning spell just missing these mounted yeoman archers. You can see that Prussian Prince's Chaos units are regrouping somewhat towards the center. His Death Wizard, or Death Sorcerer, is in a bit of trouble here. He's amidst all these Chaos Knights getting pounded on pretty hard, but he's going to be saved by the nearby Chaos Spawn, who are going to chase these Knights off. They really don't want to be involved with that, so the Chaos Wizard lives on. Let's see what else is going on. The King here being used to get rid of some of these units, very nice. He's recovered quite a bit of his health. That regenerate does make him a pretty powerful lord indeed, and he inflicts magic attacks as well, which never hurts. But Kholek Suneater very much alive, and there really is no counter to Kholek Suneater in this army. He is going to be a severe problem for Bretonnia to deal with, and I think it was a very nice lord pick by the Prussian Prince. Lots of health, no direct damage spells available to Bretonnia, so they have to take him on in melee or with missiles. Kholek can probably withstand a fair number of missiles, especially when he has all these supporting units. The Death Sorcerer can help keep Leon Kur in check, and Leon Kur can in no way take Kholek on head-to-head. So it's definitely going to be a rough fight. Now here, I believe at this point there's really not a whole lot of chance for Bretonnia, but he's going to go ahead and charge in here with these Knights in the Realm. He's going to do some pretty good damage to those Chaos Marauders, but he's going to be chased out by all these Chaos Spawn, and then Kholek here sealing up the gap. And these Knights of the Realm are going to take a savaging for that charge there. Kholek getting off a nice splash damage attack there. So these Knights of the Realm both break. Neither one shattered, but they break. So another hit to Bretonnia. Spirit Leech firing off again. So whatever Leon Kur managed to regenerate, the lightning just barely missing there, it's going to be gone now. The Death Sorcerer, definitely still the target most of the time for Leon Kur. Now Kholek getting a piece of the King and his Hippogriff. This is not going to be good at all. Rear charge though by the Pegasus Knights, which tends to be pretty strong charge, but it's a lot of monstrous units helping to protect the infantry units, which the Pegasus Knights would do the best against. And you can see the King here barely managing to get back in the air after having been chased by Kholek Suneater. So the King will live, but he's in pretty rough shape. Kholek's going to do a lot of damage as Bretonnia had to fight hard there to free the King. And at this point, the balance bar looking more and more in favor of the Prussian Prince, who's again being attacked as Death Sorcerer is. Death Sorcerer seems to continually draw the enemy units down to the ground, and then he's able to react as they come down. The Pegasus Knight, again, somewhat... this unit is... I've seen it used a very good effect, and I've seen it struggle sometimes too. It depends on what it gets used against. In rear charges against infantry or missiles, it's quite good. It has to watch out for missiles. It can be shot by them, but of course against chaos, that's not much of a worry. They're very susceptible to the fate of Viuna, obviously, but they are also very helpful units in defending the Flying King. So the Pegasus Knights definitely have a nice place in the Bretonnian army in my mind. And for 1,200, they can definitely pay off their cost if they hit the right targets. Again, against stuff like this Chaos spawn, I don't see it being particularly helpful. They would need to be used against a lot of these Chaos Marauders or other units where they're going to have more impact damage, we might guess. So the Pegasus Knights, I think, are going to struggle against the larger units. Kholek is far off in the distance, chasing some units off the battlefield. Check out the situation, looking pretty grim here for Bretonnia. A nice charge there from the Pegasus Knights. Again, you can see the damage that they do against the lighter infantry like the Chaos Marauders. It's going to be pretty nice, but it's just going to be too little and too late. Again, the Chaos Spawn charged by a Pegasus Knight. The King helping these guys with the stand your ground, which will help their morale, but as they turn around, their leadership is going to get savaged pretty badly there. You can see their leadership dropping because one of them got left behind in combat, so they get an attack in the rear penalty, which causes them to flee, and it forces an end to the battle. So calls it a Pyrrhic victory for the Prussian Prince. Let's look at the results. Again, the Lord pick there, I think, by Prussian Prince was quite nice. It's going to be hard for Bretonnia to deal with Kholek Sun Eater. He's pretty quick. He's got a lot of hit points. He's brutal in melee, and there's just not a lot of great counter because the only units with a bonus versus large are the infantry, and the whole idea for this Bretonnian army was to be free of infantry for the most part. He did have a couple of peasant bowmen, but missile infantry tend to be pretty fast. But you can see that a lot of the units here chosen by the Prussian Prince, fairly quick units, and all the monsters here combined with some Forsaken. This is a huge damage dealing component, and the two can combine to actually be effective versus cavalry in my mind. The infantry kind of absorb the charge, the monsters can finish it up, or vice versa. The Chaos Warhounds with Poison, I like this pick. It can be used against fast moving targets, and if nothing else, the Poison helps draw down the stats of the enemy. In terms of the Bretonnian army, I definitely like the Pegasus Knight picks. These guys give you mobility and a hammer and anvil capability that's very nice. Knights of the Realm are a solid pick in terms of being pretty decent cavalry for the price. They just weren't able to get done everything they needed to here because of the monster support with the infantry. And then obviously I like the pick of King Lewin Leoncoeur. He is a great lord in this and a great pick. He just wasn't really able to make it happen here. So it is now 2-1 for the Prussian Prince, so the next game will be make or break for Dark Admiral. I will see you in Game 4, and we'll see what happens. Alright, Game 4, the Prussian Prince is up 2-1, and this game is going to be the Prussian Prince playing as the Vampire Counts versus the Dark Admiral with the Empire. These are not their armies, by the way, these are just armies that I had in there from earlier. So, the Vampire Counts, I think we all know what they're good at, which is rushing, obviously, because they have no missile units, so to speak, at least nothing conventional. They have access to Crypt Horrors, which are going to make them a horror, indeed. And Crypt Horrors are capped to 4 because of the rules here, but we've all seen what 4 Crypt Horrors can do in something like the Death Star. They can still be absolutely devastating. You have access to ethereal units with the vampires, which of course ignore physical damage for the most part. I think it's 80% they ignore physical damage. Access to both the lore of vampires and the lore of death, with some great options available to them. Meat shields in the form of zombies, that's 6,480 hit points that an enemy would have to chew through. Skeletons also making a nice meat shield unit. So the vampires can combine Monstrous Infantry with a hit point sponge type unit, like a zombie or a skeleton warrior. Now the Empire, obviously the strengths that you would expect here would be a hero potentially mounted on a griffin. The lore of fire, celestial, and light, all very nice options, but probably more likely to see a light wizard, if anything, up against the vampires. Demigryphs with halberds being able to dominate infantry, or monstrous infantry quite well. Anything that's counted as large, these are going to be good. They do have a weakness, obviously, to the Fate of Buna, which is very common coming out of the Vampire, so something to be aware of for players selecting them. And obviously other interesting units like steam tanks and stuff like that. But we will see what gets picked. The Witch Hunter, obviously sometimes a common pick against vampires as well. And just in terms of pound for pound infantry hitting power, the vampires are going to be stronger, whereas the Empire is going to carry more diversity and have access to ranged units. Let's go jump into the battle and see how it turns out. Welcome to Game 4. 4 Cryptors, 4 Cairn Wraiths, 2 Hex Wraiths. This looks kind of like a Death Star. We will see whether or not he deploys it that way. I see 4 Great Swords, 3 Demigryphs, 2 Handgunners, 3 Spears, a Witch Hunter, and an Empire Captain. From the Empire, the Lord for the Prussian Prince is a Lore of Vampires Wizard. Not Manfred von Karstein, it's just a Necromancer. And then we've got the Vampiress, and she is... I know she's here in the battlefield, so here she is. She's also on foot. So no mounts for the vampires against the Empire, which is kind of interesting. That'll help protect from Shim's burning gaze, for sure. You can see them standing in the middle of a zombie meat shield. So nice pick by the Prussian Prince, and that zombie meat shield's going to be nice. The spearmen are up front for the Empire, backed up by great swords, handgunners in the very back, demigryphs on the flanks, and the Empire Captain and the Witch Hunter in the center. You can see the Witch Hunter here waiting behind the spears, hoping to accuse the vampires of being vampires, I guess. There's no witches in this battle unless you consider the female vampire a witch. She casts spells. So the Cairn Wraiths going to be able to tank a lot of damage, as will Hex Wraiths, because they ignore physical damage. None of the Empire units have magical attacks except for a wizard, which, interestingly enough, against the vampires, there is no wizard present. An odd pick to be sure, going with the Witch Hunter. So Fate of Buna already inbound on these Demigryph Knights who are going to get hit by Hex Wraiths and immediately supported by Cairn Wraiths. You can see the Hex Wraiths fairly resistant to what would otherwise be an absolutely devastating charge, and it was still devastating, but still they're able to hold on. We've got Accusation going in on the Prussian Prince's general, doing some damage but not a ton. The Vampire Heroes coming to join the combat. Cairn Wraiths going to support the Hex Wraiths on the flanks, and it is actually a pretty potent combination. Demigryph Knights are being cut down by ethereal units that have a great armor-piercing value. So that's going quite well. Great swords being sent out, or spears being sent out. The Cryptors doing what they do best, which is combining with cheap meat shield infantry to come in and just cause an enormous amount of damage. And the Cairn Wraiths are an excellent hit point sponge and armor-penetrating damage dealer. And you can see here that the center for the Empire is already collapsing. Behind them, positioned nicely, are these handgunners who can shoot at the large targets like Cryptors and do pretty decent damage. I actually probably would have rather seen crossbows here, just because I think they would probably fire faster and potentially even do more damage than the handgunners. I'm just not a big fan of the handgunners for the Empire. They don't seem very good. I'm sure they can be used well occasionally. They're going to be struggling, though, because they can easily get chased down by either Cryptors or Cairn Wraiths, and you can see the center just completely collapsing for the Empire. The flank engagements going in favor of the Vampires, where the combination of Wraiths is able to best the Demigryph Knights, which were the best hope for the Empire here. And you can see the men of the Empire fleeing at the horrific sight of this Vampire army, ripping their comrades to shreds. You can see the handgunners back here caught and being shredded by the Cryptors as well. Their last sight in this life is a disgusting, hairy butt coming at them and absolutely splitting them apart, sending gore and intestines everywhere. So, a bleak picture to be sure. The Empire Captain is about to die in this fight, and he was kind of the last unit holding together the morale of this army, and he gets hammered by Cryptors there, and that's going to be the end of the battle. That sends the rest of the Empire units fleeing, except for this one brave greatsword unit who decides to come charging back into combat for one last blaze of glory.
Take that,
Those Wraiths are so cool looking. The color and everything on them and the effects is very, very nice. One of my favorite units in the game from an aesthetic standpoint. And that's going to be it for the Empire. So Prussian Prince goes up 3-1, taking this best of 5, and what I thought were a very interesting set of matches. He picked the Dwarves first, taking what he probably felt was the weakest faction first, and then being able to step it up from there, saving the vampires for this critical game where if he wins, it is a win and take it type scenario, which I thought was very nice. The Empire, of course, saved by the Dark Admiral for this game, and that's also good. The Empire is a great faction, potentially capable of stopping the vampires if anybody is. But at this point, Prussian Prince was able to just take it home. Hope you all enjoyed these matches. I both like and sometimes get tired of competitive play, because sometimes competitive play gets too monotonous, like it was getting for me in, say, Rome 2 or Attila. This was interesting. I haven't seen a lot of competitive play yet in Total War Warhammer, and so this was interesting to see. I really liked the completely unorthodox picks that Prussian Prince brought in Game 2, and it was interesting to see that you had Dark Admiral come into this bringing the vampires first, which are arguably one of the toughest factions, while Prussian Prince goes with one of his weakest factions. And that may have been a decision that ended up being bad in the end. But again, this is coming from a guy who doesn't play competitively and probably can't from a competitive standpoint, but just my 2 cents from the outside looking in. Maybe saving the vampires could have been a good plan. Maybe not. We'll see. But Prussian Prince takes this one. Hope you all enjoyed it. I will be back with more Warhammer Online battles soon. Tell me what you think in the comments. HeirofCarthage signing out. See you soon.